You ever wake up, pour your morning coffee, glance out at your lake and think, why is the water glowing green like it came out of a comic book villain's bathtub? Yeah, that was the Tuesday everything went sideways. My name's George. I'm 67, retired, and live in a little corner of heaven just outside of Cedar Grove. Quiet, calm, and, up until recently, Karen-free. But every paradise has a snake. Mine just wore pearls and chaired the HOA. Now, let me paint you a picture. I've lived here for 12 years, bought a piece of property with a small lake tucked in the back, not huge, maybe a couple acres, but clean, stocked with bass, and mine. I take care of it. Weekly water tests, no pesticides on my lawn, even got the grandkids to stop chucking hot dogs in it when they fish. But next door, we had Karen. You know the type. HOA president. Drives a Lexus SUV the size of a small yacht. Has a tiny dog named Mr. Buttons, who barks like a car alarm set to neurotic. She once fined me $50 because the shadow of my mailbox leaned disrespectfully across the HOA line. Yeah, that kind of Karen. Anyway, she hated my lake, said it was unsightly, unnatural, and lowered neighborhood aesthetics, whatever that means. I always suspected she was jealous because she didn't have water on her property. Just a concrete koi pond and a ceramic flamingo that's been sunburned since 2006. So imagine my surprise when, one morning, I catch a big old landscaping truck parked right next to my lake. Guys in rubber boots unloading what looks like oily barrels and dumping murky gray liquid straight into my water. I march out there like Clint Eastwood with a bum knee and go, "Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing?" One guy says, "Ask your neighbor, she paid us." Neighbor, Karen? I walk around the truck and there she is, arms crossed, sunglasses on, smug as a cat who just peed on your newspaper. Relax, George, she says. I'm beautifying the runoff zone. It's legal. Legal? My lake ain't a runoff zone. It's private. I own every inch of it, and she knows that. I tell her, you dump one more bucket of that mystery gunk, and I'm calling the cops. She smiles and says, call the HOA. We've approved the beautification. And besides, it's only gray water, perfectly non-toxic. Non-toxic, huh? Tell that to the fish that started floating belly up the next day. I called Animal Control, the EPA, the City Water Board. Heck, I even called the mayor's office. Most folks gave me the usual runaround. We'll send someone next week. It's an HOA matter. Did you try talking to her? Talking to her? That's like reasoning with a brick that thinks it's better than other bricks. So I started digging myself, pulled up property maps, water rights paperwork, even the subdivision charter from 1994. Turns out, my lake is 100% outside HOA jurisdiction, meaning Karen has about as much right to touch it as I do to move into Buckingham Palace. And that's when I got the idea. I called a buddy of mine named Jerry. Jerry used to work for the EPA. Retired now, but still has friends in low places with high authority. He shows up 2 days later with a clipboard, a portable test kit, and a grin that said, let's ruin Karen's day. We take samples. The results? Let's just say gray water doesn't usually contain industrial degreasers, phosphates, and traces of what appeared to be lawn chemical concentrate. In other words, toxic sludge. Jerry makes a few calls. 2 days later, a black SUV with government plates rolls into the neighborhood, and 4 folks in jackets with big EPA logos hop out. Now, Karen's out front watering her gladiolus when she sees them and tries to play innocent. Oh, are you here about the feral raccoons I reported last week? Nope, they ask to see the sourness of the runoff. She stammers, tries to deflect, then she pulls out the old, this is all just a misunderstanding. But it's hard to misunderstand when they follow the spill right from my lake back to the barrels she had stored behind her garage, still unsealed, still leaking. I wish you could have seen the color drain from her face faster than the water drained from her koi pond during that plumbing disaster last year. But here's the kicker. Want to guess what those barrels were originally labeled? Hazardous, non-commercial use prohibited. Now who's beautifying the runoff zone? Now I thought Karen's day couldn't get worse after the EPA found those leaky barrels. But oh, I was wrong. Because while the EPA was gathering samples, taking notes, and shaking their heads at every step of her backyard chemistry experiment, guess who showed up? The local Channel 9 news van. Apparently, Jerry's daughter saw the EPA jackets when she stopped by to drop off cookies, snapped a pic, and posted it to the local Cedar Grove Neighbors Who Complain About Everything Facebook group. By the time the news van rolled up, half the neighborhood had already grabbed lawn chairs and popcorn. I kid you not, Edna from 3 houses down brought a folding table and started selling homemade lemonade. It was a full-blown HOA circus. And Karen? She tried to duck into her garage like a gopher dodging a lawnmower. But one of the EPA agents waved her back over and said, "Ma'am, we're not quite finished here." Turns out, she had hired an unlicensed eco-landscaping company to haul leftover chemicals from a community project she didn't want to pay proper disposal for. In plain English, she tried to cheap out and dump toxic waste in what she thought was a communal swamp. Only it wasn't a swamp. It was my lake. Private, protected, and now poisoned. Now here's where it gets really strange. The chemicals must have triggered something in the ecosystem because, I kid you not, we had a frog explosion within 3 days. I mean hundreds of frogs. Big ones, little ones, tree hoppers, pond squatters, you name it. They croaked all night like a barbershop quartet on steroids. And where did they congregate? Karen's koi pond. Even Mr. Buttons refused to go outside. So we've got EPA agents, a local news crew, a viral Facebook post, and a growing frog rebellion centered on her prized koi pond. I started calling it the amphibian uprising of Cedar Grove. Karen, she's in full meltdown mode. She tried issuing a cease and desist letter to me, claimed I sabotaged the neighborhood by weaponizing nature. Imagine the HOA president accusing you of training frogs like some kind of eco-bond villain. I almost made a t-shirt that said, "Swamp Lord Supreme." But here's the best part. The community, tired of years of Karen's HOA tyranny, finally snapped. Old Harold, he's 82, Vietnam vet, walks with a cane and a scowl, marched right up to the HOA office, which is basically Karen's sunroom, and slapped down a petition. "We're voting you out." Dozens signed it. Turns out, I wasn't the only one with stories. She fined one woman for planting non-regulation roses. Another guy got written up because his American flag made too much fabric noise in the wind. And don't even get me started on the Halloween debacle of 2019. Let's just say Karen doesn't believe in inflatable pumpkins over 18 inches tall. So at the emergency HOA meeting, held at the rec center because nobody trusted her living room anymore, Karen tried to defend herself. She showed pie charts, spoke in buzzwords like neighborhood synergy and aesthetically cohesive horticulture zones. Didn't work. Everyone had had enough. They voted her out, 31-2. The 2 votes in her favor? Hers and Mr. Buttons. Someone brought him in as a proxy. The little traitor wore a sweater. As for the EPA, they fined her, heavily, $28,000 for illegal dumping, another $5,000 for unlicensed contractors, and she had to pay for the full cleanup of my lake, which included bringing in a team of aquatic biologists and installing 2 aeration fountains. And let me tell you, those fountains, glorious. They sparkle in the moonlight. The fish are back. The grandkids love them. And best of all, they're shaped like frogs. I didn't ask for that. The installation company just said, "We heard the story and figured you'd get a kick out of it." Oh, I did. So now things are back to normal. The lake is clean. The fish are biting. Karen moved away a month later. Rumor is she relocated to a retirement community where the HOA has 134 rules and a weekly sock color theme. Fitting. And me? Well, I still wake up every morning, pour my coffee, and look out at that water. Only now, when I see it sparkle, I smile. Not just because it's mine, but because we stood up to the nonsense. We didn't let some petty tyrant poison what was good and peaceful just because she thought she could. Sometimes you don't need lawyers or pitchforks, just a few good neighbors, a clipboard, and maybe a frog or 2. If you've ever had to deal with a Karen, a nightmare HOA, or just someone who forgot what common sense means, drop your story in the comments. I read every one. And if you enjoyed this little tale of backyard justice, give it a like, hit subscribe, and tune in next week for another real-life neighborhood drama, because trust me, I've got plenty. Thanks for watching, friends. Stay sharp, stay kind, and never let anyone dump toxic sludge on your peace.